It's the Harris Football Podcast, brought to you by DraftKings, America's top-rated daily fantasy app, with your host, Christopher Harris.
Welcome! Hey, everybody. Welcome in. My name's Chris. This is something that I make for your ear holes. Thank you so much for listening. I know it's exhausting. Please stay at home if you can. Please wear a mask when you can't. Obviously, if you're anywhere near the greater Detroit area, be careful with your kneecaps. I will start today with a little talk about what we saw on Sunday, the two conference championship games. We have next week's show to look ahead at the Super Bowl. I think in the AFC, we probably, most of us have the sense the better team won, but certainly were helped along by some terrible coaching by the Bills, both on offense, where they kicked two inexcusable short field goals, and then I thought just game plan-wise didn't roll Josh Allen out enough. They had grown very stagnant in the playoffs. They kind of felt like they lost what had made them a better offense over the course of the season. I didn't think like the receivers are running a lot of ISO routes and not running combo routes. And I know Cole Beasley wasn't healthy, but I just didn't love the approach. And then, Josh Allen himself was just left really wanting. It was one of his worst games of the season. And then also on defense, where 1 week after blitzing Lamar Jackson to the fiery depths of hell, they came out Sunday and played zone and left Travis Kelce by himself, to the point where Tony Romo was begging them to chip Kelce at the line, do something to get in his way. Great season for the Bills, and optimism going forward, yes, but they were not ready. In the NFC, I think you'd argue it was closer. It probably shouldn't have been closer because you got a tale of two halves from Tom Brady. He was as good as he's been all season in the first half, converting a ton of third downs, building a lead, making that throw before halftime. But there's no way to spin the second half. He was mostly bad and occasionally awful. The first deep pick looked like something from the regular season Chiefs matchup, just chucking a bomb up in the air with no idea, no hope, just, maybe my guy's open. He's double covered. The one to Mike Evans over the middle, absolutely Brady's fault, way too high and thrown too hard. The third interception didn't really bother me. It's an arm punt, and they were going to punt anyway, and Leonard Fournette had gone the wrong way and missed a block, and Brady just getting rid of it rather than take a sack, but certainly put his defense in tricky positions in the second half, and the Tampa defense rose to the occasion. I think we add to what happened, the final interference call, which, obviously when you tug a guy's T-shirt for like 10 feet, that's by the letter of the law, that's interference, but they really hadn't been calling it all game, including on an earlier Rodgers interception that wasn't as egregious of a hold, but it was a hold. Plus, I didn't think Brady, I don't think that throw had all that much chance of being completed regardless. Brady's incredible first half play got Tampa the lead, but his subpar second half play nearly lost it. The story, as with the Bills, was Green Bay's coaching. Just an unbelievable, mind-numbing decision to kick the field goal down 8 with less than 3 minutes left. You get the sense the coach understands it now, but it's the kind of thing that we used to rail on Andy Reid for all those years. And now Reid doesn't make those mistakes. And you just combine that with, the defense at the end of the first half, 6 seconds to go, single safety high, allowing Scotty Miller one-on-one against Kevin King, just dreadful. Plus, after the last field goal that they shouldn't have kicked, then they kick off, and they kick it off short, I assume intentionally, potentially allowing Tampa to set up a return and get it under the 2-minute warning and take away one of your timeouts. And Tampa sort of obliged by not returning it, and it happened anyway, but it was just a dumb kick on a day when the Packers special teams just could not tackle anyone. And Aaron Rodgers himself, I rode that MVP season to, looking like I'm a smart guy, but he had multiple chances in the second half, and he couldn't make it happen. Earlier, he'd had the missed end zone connections with Devontae Adams. Late, he had the 3rd and goal from the 8, where he could have run, and he didn't. Tampa's front seven is probably the best front seven in the game. It's certainly the best that's left in the playoffs. They're no joke. They were really tough. Plus, Brady did play very well in the first half. But there's a little bit of a sense the Packers lost that game at least as much as the Buccaneers won it. So, Chiefs, Bucks, Mahomes, Brady. We have another show to dig into that next week, and that is what we will do. I personally don't believe for 1 second that Rodgers is going anywhere, but we do know that Matthew Stafford will be. Plus, there continues to be the suspicion, as we talked about on last week's show, that Deshaun Watson will be. There's going to be a lot of QBs on the move, but also lots of time to talk about that. Let's get into today's show.
Today's Kickoff.
So it's pretty simple. It's the total request episode. We are taking your questions and we are answering them. Some of them will be about fantasy, some will be about the NFL, and some will be about other stuff, including TV and books and writing and other topics. My guest for the whole show is gonna be Patrick Daugherty.
Christopher Harris, it's me.
We love RotoPat around here. A kinder and nicer dude you will never find. I'm really looking forward to it, and I once again really do. Thank you so much for listening. So happy to be brought to you today by Indochino. You know, it's still important to look good when you can, even if it's merely for a Zoom date, which I know something about. And with Indochino, perfectly fitted custom clothes are a lot more affordable than you might think. It's never a bad time to look good, right? And I have experience with Indochino. I've gotten a couple of made-to-measure tailored shirts. I just recently ordered a pair of black chinos. Just got notice they are on the way. I'm really stoked to get them. I customized with tan buttons and welt pockets, no pleats, and a blind hem. Everything I've ever gotten from Indochino has just felt better because it was custom made for me. Custom fitted suits, coats, casual wear. You can customize fabrics and linings and lapel shapes. It's made to fit you with your measurements. I just did this. Book a virtual appointment and shop online at Indochino.com. And when you enter Harris at checkout, you'll get $30 off any purchase over $3.99. That's $30 off a purchase of $3.99 at Indochino.com and use that promo code Harris.
Today's guest.
Too prickly of a personality. Charlie Day, Ringo Starr, Mr. Also Important at Rotoworld. Welcome, Pat Daugherty.
And here he is. It is Patrick Daugherty, is Charlie Day, Ringo Starr, as immortalized in the Ryan Mahoney classic. You can find him on Twitter at RotoPat. Now, I want people to know that before we started, I said, I'm going to play, I got multiple walk-up songs for you. I'm going to play your first one, the old one. And you said, which one's that? I don't really remember. And then what did I do?
What did you do? You sang it, is what you did. You you sang it word for word. And just a beautiful homage to me from your listeners and then from you to be serenaded before the Super Bowl. Auspicious start to 2021.
For you, I know, amazing. In fact, I mean, that's one of the rare ones that's not karaoke. That's an original. So somebody sat down and actually wrote an original song for you, which is
someone to come up with a melody and write lyrics and everything. That's quite a commitment, quite devotion, as I said, from your audience. And it's the only podcast, that I've ever been on where the listeners decided to create an original melody and original song for me. So that will be tough to beat if you're listening to other podcasts.
So we were talking also before we started that your next writing assignment for Rotoworld is you have a season in review column coming in the next, would you say next week or so? Is that right?
The target is the day after the Super Bowl. My voice just got really
weeks.
high there because I don't know if I'm going to hit it. But that's when I did it last year.
Okay.
I may have 0 words written right now.
All right.
So
basically
we're
the idea is a paragraph per NFL team, just kind of reviewing where they came from. It was very popular last year. And so if you're gonna go through football withdrawal right after the Super Bowl. You can, and if you don't see it posted the day after the Super Bowl, then at RotoPat, let him know. Let him hear about it.
Send me an email, send me a tweet, send me a text. We're seeing if we're going to hit that. Inauspicious start to the offseason would be missing my first deadline. So
I think you're going to be fine. So this is an annual tradition of asking the folks on the People of the Book Facebook group. So we have a Facebook group that's pretty much devoted to people who've bought a novel of mine, Pat. There are other ways in, but we don't like to talk about those. It's mostly just, hey, like if you wanted to be one of the people who got to ask Pat a question for this segment, all you have to do is buy a book of mine. Go to Amazon, buy a book of mine, email me, heyharris@harrisfootball.com, and you're in the group. And being in the group also actually gets you into the live chats that I do an hour before kickoff every single Sunday. It's like one book, and you get to do that forever. That's kind of fun. Not that I'm a shameless shill for my own fiction writing, but we're going to talk about that as we go, because it turns out we got a few questions about that. But that's where these questions came from, listeners who belong to the People of the Book group on Facebook. And so I'm going to dig in. I always say that they can be partly about football. They can be totally not about football, whatever you want to ask myself and my guest, in this case, Pat. The first one I'm going to start with is actually a couple of questions. One is from Dan Brando, and the question was more specifically for me, because Dan knows what my ranks were when we started talking about them early in December. Does Michael Thomas drop out of your top 10 overall if Drew Brees retires? And then Ian Hurlbert also said thoughts on the Saints quarterback situation, assuming that Brees retires. So I guess this is kind of I'll kick it off to you, Pat. Like, how are you envisioning? We don't really know whether Brees is going to retire. I think we widely expect that he will. What do you think is going to be left behind in that under center? And then also, what's it going to do to the other guys?
I'll just briefly comment on the book and the chat, and maybe you're hinting at you view that as like shameless or whatever. But I've thought of a line from the late David Berman of the Silver Jews and Purple Mountains, who said, "If you're selling a commodity, you've got to sell yourself immodestly. So don't worry about it at all." And it's a very, very clever tactic. So I need a book, by the way. I need a book. You need to give me an idea, since you have regular book ideas, like an idea that's not good enough for you, and then I need to try to write a book off of that. But the Saints, the New Orleans Saints, that football team that exists that I'm supposed to be talking about. I think it's going to be Taysom Hill. Like, is that crazy? No. Sean Payton, if you're looking at the definition of, if the phrase "in too deep" was in the dictionary, which it shouldn't be because it's 3 words. I think Sean Payton and Taysom Hill would be the picture next to it. He's got a $16 million cap hit right now, and with the Saints, $100 million over the cap. Part of that might be extending Taysom Hill and spreading out that money. And I just think even if you're $100 million over the salary cap, we all know that to a degree is fake. You can massage that, you can get around that. But so I think the Saints will easily get under the cap. But are they really going to have the cap money to sign another option to Taysom Hill? I think it's going to be very, very difficult. And I think we're all just very committed to the idea this is an act or a bit kind of from Sean Payton. And I think it just obviously became increasingly clear in 2020 that it was not. And he sincerely believes in Taysom Hill. So I do think it will be Taysom Hill. If it is Taysom Hill, I don't think that drops Michael Thomas out of my top 10. Even playing on one leg, he had 2 8-reception games from Taysom Hill. He had a 9-reception game. They're going to have to cut. So part of the salary cap, they're probably going to have to cut Jared Cook. They're probably going to have to cut Emmanuel Sanders. And I think Michael Thomas will remain, obviously, this isn't a bold opinion, but an extremely important part of this offense. And Taysom Hill, for however limited he is of a passer or whatever, he got the memo last year. You need to target Michael Thomas, and you need to do it a lot. And I think it'll be Taysom Hill. And I think Michael Thomas will still be a very valuable fantasy commodity.
So the top 10 that Dan is referring to is my overall top 10, not wide receiver top 10, where I was I still think Michael Thomas is a first-round pick. And so probably I would come off of that opinion. If it's not Drew Brees and if it is Taysom Hill, volume is really good, especially when the receiver is really, really good. but the quarterback just flat out as a thrower won't be anywhere near as good. So it probably is too bold now for me to, if there's no Drew Brees, I think I will back off of him as a first round overall pick. But I could see a world where he's still a top 10 fantasy wide receiver, like he still numbers among that list just when you're showing the list of wide receivers.
Yeah, I think he could probably still be a top 5 overall receiver, a top 10 overall pick. That is a good distinction to make there, because he's going to probably lack that stratospheric upside that he had under Drew Brees. I think the floor will remain very much intact, and the floor will be enough to keep him in the top 5 receiver. Yeah, first round pick Taysom or Michael Thomas. I do agree that will probably not be happening.
Okay, Chris Nelson asked, is there too much pressure on young quarterbacks to succeed as rookies? And this is specifically about the player on whom I am in the tank, Tua. It feels like Tua has been labeled a failure by many after 8 games. And then Chris says, when some of the best quarterbacks in the game didn't play very much early in their career, Brady, Rodgers, Breeze, Mahomes. This is really licensed for us to just talk about Tua, because I want to. But I don't really. Actually, let's just talk about Tua, because there's lots of pressure, sure, but there's always pressure when you're a starting quarterback in the NFL. That's fine. I agree with Chris's assessment that so many people, it seems to me, are saying, oh, well, is Deshaun Watson going to go to Miami? Obviously, Tua didn't work out. And I always do that record scratch, like I do not understand that opinion at all. And I know we've said even on the show that you have a couple of blurbers at Rotoworld who just don't like Tua and think that anything good he did was not because of him, and anything bad he did is all his fault. So what do you think about this? Do you agree with the assessment that a lot of people are calling 8 games of Tua a failure? And then what do you think of that assessment?
Well, yeah, boy, do they hate him. I won't name names, but yeah, there's a few Rotoworld writers not a fan. And it's not confined to those Rotoworld writers. Tua on Twitter, he was, I don't know if I've ever seen the degree of vitriol for a player on such a limited sample size who wasn't even playing poorly. His stats weren't even bad. He wasn't easy on the eyes a lot of times. He was being asked to be so conservative. The offense was not being opened up for him whatsoever. And a huge part of that, of course, was there was just almost no one to throw to. The running game was in chaos. Every week there was a new every down back who seemed to be taking the lead and then would get hurt or got coronavirus. So it was just an extremely chaotic situation around him. And I thought, all things considered, maybe there was too much emphasis on not turning the ball over, which has kind of become a recent NFL obsession, making quarterbacks be conservative to the point of where it's counterproductive. You need to figure out your limitations. And we such a huge fixation on early career turnovers. Maybe with Josh Allen, maybe I bought into it too much with Josh Allen, where it was probably just Josh Allen, obviously learning the game and kind of establishing his limitations. So maybe there's too much focus from the Dolphins coaching staff on avoiding mistakes with Tua, but he did avoid those mistakes. He did flash enough of that playmaking ability. I'm still bullish on the rest of Tua's career. And a few things about the Tua and the benching, his benching, creating so much debate. It kind of highlights how rarely rookie quarterbacks are on actually good teams. Most teams will never even be in the position to bench their rookie quarterback. It doesn't matter. They have nothing to gain. So it doesn't really come up. But this used to be way more common. I feel like it didn't used to just be set it and forget it with rookie quarterbacks. It was not uncommon to kind of do what the Dolphins did, to kind of be mixing and matching, try to go with the rookie, let them develop. But if they're actually a competitive, good football team, it wasn't viewed as the biggest taboo in the world to go to the veteran, mix things up. And to me, it didn't signal any lack of faith from the Dolphins for me in Tua. They were just up on the verge of the playoffs and trying to make the playoff. They were doing a good job of threading the needle and trying to have it both ways. And yeah, I didn't view it at all as a red flag for his future. And those are my very expansive Tua Tagovailoa thoughts.
And I completely agree with all of them, and I don't need to talk too much. The Buffalo game at the end, when they had a chance to make the playoffs, he played badly. We're not going to sugarcoat that one. He did. He played badly. It became a snowball rolling downhill, and he threw picks where he shouldn't have thrown picks, and he didn't play well. And that's definitely the taste that people. That's what people were left with. And otherwise, I will say mostly, even the Denver game when he got benched, he wasn't playing that bad. They were just trying to get something different going. And Fitzmagic didn't come in and play well in that game. Sorry, he didn't. I saw so much that's good in the actual play-to-play in terms of being able to be accurate and throw with touch and throw with speed and throw. Like, I just think as a thrower, he's going to be great. And I'm not calling him a wonderful fantasy option right away because he's not yet, because they haven't proven that they want to let him go, that they have the weapons to, take advantage of him being good. But I am so in the tank. I 100% still believe. I'm willing very much to be contrarian here.
Yeah, I'm still at 2 of, and I thought he did a really, really good job of like completions into tight spaces, and I thought it was like processing the game reasonably quickly. It was just, I think it was just about protecting a rookie quarterback who had no one to throw to. One of his very first starts, he had a nice connection going with Preston Williams, and then he got hurt and never came back. And it was just a lot about, I did think maybe the Dolphins focused too much on protecting him and like not taking the training wheels off, but that's like not his fault. And I just totally agree with you. I saw a lot to be excited about.
Kevin Pasternak asks, what's the TV series you binged during lockdown that you enjoyed the most? And unfortunately, it's still lockdown. And so now we're talking 11 months and we've been through a full season. So I have to remember back to things I was binging a year ago. But what's your answer there?
I know. Well, my answer is that I'm the world's worst TV binger. And I don't really, I shockingly, I don't think I binged a single TV show the entire lockdown. And the last show I binged was Succession, but at the end of 2019, which is amazing. And I'm eagerly awaiting season 3. Yeah. But I did binge something though, where at the very beginning of lockdown, so like I don't usually crave like escapist entertainment, but I was definitely, my anxiety was like very high. There's so much uncertainty. And for like the first time in an extremely long time, I played the game of Madden football. And I started an online Madden dynasty with 3 of my friends. And that was very much my quarantine binge, where we kept it going for like a solid 3 or 4 months. And like playing to the point where my wife was definitely questioning why I needed to be staying up every night and playing Madden. And that was my quarantine binge. It's not a perfect game by any stretch. But it was very, very fun to generate the fake statistics, to have the showdowns of my real life friends, and getting back into Madden was my quarantine binge.
So I did last first half of last year during the beginning of quarantine. I redid Breaking Bad. I redid Better Call Saul. I'll like exclude those because I knew I loved those, like things that I'd seen and loved previously. Just wanted to watch them all again. I did Mindhunter. Did you ever watch Mindhunter?
I did not. I'm a David Fincher fan too,
yeah.
But so I know about all of this stuff, and yeah. I don't know if it's the kid thing or what.
Right, you got like 8 small children, so. Yeah.
And like my fallback is always just throwing on live sports, but there was a lot of live sports at the beginning of that pandemic. So I don't know really what I was doing.
You were playing Madden.
I guess it was playing The Last Dance, but I guess I did binge The Last Dance.
Okay, there you go, The Last Dance. Yeah, I have. I didn't do that. I want to do that. I that'll be on my list. I'll wrap it up by saying, did you hear of a series on Showtime at the end of 2020 called The Good Lord Bird?
I did, with Ethan Hawke, I believe.
Yeah, I didn't hear of it. That's literally just the most recent thing in this January that I just binged, and I can't tell you that it's like the greatest thing I've ever seen, but I'm really glad I watched it. It's about John Brown. So I joke that John Brown, the NFL player, is like one of his nicknames is the Rebellion because of John Brown's rebellion. Well, this is about John Brown, the abolitionist, and I thought it was really good.
You mean every show that should be binged I have heard of, and then I just don't binge it somehow. So yeah, I'm been slacking on my television viewing, which is a very important part of being a modern consumer, is I need to be binging more television, and I'm not playing my part in the economy.
Quick break. We are sponsored by Bespoke Post. This winter, they've got an all-new lineup of essential Box of Awesome collections for guys. I get the Box of Awesome. I just got the Last Call box, 5 bottles of cocktail mixers that I've been using, shall we say, regularly. Bespoke Post sends guys the best stuff every month. It's like a present to yourself that upgrades your style or your indoor hosting skills, cozy threads for the winter, barware, cooking tools, outdoor gear, collections that are fun. I've gotten a lot of Boxes of Awesome now over the years, and it always tickles me when they arrive. To get started, go to take the quiz at boxofawesome.com. And your answers will help them pick out a great first box for you. They release new boxes every month, and it's free to sign up. There's no commitment. You can always skip a month. You can always cancel anytime you want. Each box costs $45, but has over $70 worth of gear. Plus, get 20% off your first monthly box when you sign up at boxofawesome.com and use the code Harris at checkout. That's boxofawesome.com, code Harris, for 20% off your first box. Okay, we're back with Pat Daugherty, and we are answering your questions on our Total Request episode. Tony Fisher says, if I'm drafting in a deep league with between 16 and 18 teams, is my change in strategy as simple as moving guys up on draft boards for each round due to the increase of picks per round? Or is there some other nuance to deeper league drafts, maybe not previously mentioned, that you consider?
Yeah, I feel like hopefully you have good advice on this. I feel like I don't have great advice on this. Definitely the first thing that came to mind was less fidelity to ADP, both for the practical reason he laid out of the rounds are bigger, and it's going to be harder to do apples to oranges there, or apples to apples there, excuse me. But also just like the deeper the league, the increased the desperation is going to be. And if your guys, you're definitely going to have to attack your guys more, because like you just can't, ADP just becomes almost useless in that kind of like, you can't count on this guy falling to his normal range. So you have to be much more aggressive with your guys, and maybe too just a greater willingness to invest in like the unsexy older proven talent, like players who might be playing on like 1-year deals in real life. And even in normal fantasy drafts, we have a kind of like an industry wide people do not want to take old players, do not want to invest and like those kind of guys, but maybe you get more bargains because the desperation, people are like, oh, I've got to get, you've got to get your guys, but everyone's been thinking that way, and maybe it's the willingness to accept you're going to have to get some less sexy names, and that would be the only thing that came to mind for me.
Well, what I would add is just all the things we tell you to wait on. Guess what? You can't really wait on him anymore. When like the reason we tell you not to wait on quarterback is that you'll find one in the 10th round and it doesn't matter. But in a 16 or 18 team league, guess what? You're gonna, if you wait till the 10th round, you're gonna wind up with Sam Darnold as your quarterback. Like, yes, it's the same principle behind why on a super flex league you got to go quarterback pretty early. You got to go earlier. Same with tight end. We're all about waiting on tight end. Nope. The good thing about a deep league is scarcity is much more of an issue at all positions, across all positions. It's not perfect. Running backs are still that much more scarce, and the wide receivers who are reliable are still that much more scarce. But you're just simply not going to see positions flat out ignored the way you do. I mean, when we do wise guy drafts, Pat, in August, God forbid it ever be August again, because that seems like a long way away. But when we do, I'll be sitting there picking in the 7th round and realize that Mahomes is still there. Nobody's taking quarterbacks, right? And citizen drafts aren't like that so much, but so much of our business is telling people to judge this thing, draft via scarcity in your league. Find where the scarcity is, and those are the guys you need. And when there's not scarcity, wait and take whatever, because it doesn't matter. And if it's an 18-team league, that's not really there anymore.
I mean, yeah, if you're streaming in an 18-team league, really hope you like John Wolford. So, yeah, very good advice.
I like this question. Jonathan Bones says, what would your childhood self think of what you're doing today?
It's a very interesting question, and I have to say I think they would approve because I had kind of like just the classic like sports obsessive childhood where I was watching every sport from an extremely young age. I have like notebooks upon notebooks full of like fake sports teams, like fake simulated seasons, like simulated seasons for players, simulated seasons for entire teams. I also did this with like movie studios and bands, by the way. I had a very active imagination. I would create like entire fake discographies, like entire fake filmographies I don't know how weird this is, but I did a lot of imagination in that regard. And I started reading the newspaper when I was like 6, started reading Sports Illustrated when I was like 7. And by reading, I mean mostly looking at stats and pictures. But yeah, I mean, they would probably be like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This is what you were doing. It was what I was doing from a young age.
Yeah, I think my young self would think it was cool. They'd be like, what's a podcast? But then I would describe it, and they'd be like, okay, it sounds fine. Sure, I was like massively into sports when I was a little kid, and I got Sports Illustrated in the mail for a decade probably, and I had sort of had twin obsessions, which was sports and novels, fiction writing, and so I'm lucky enough that I get to both. So, I don't think the young me would be disappointed particularly. Like, I never really had the illusion that I was going to be a professional athlete. I played in high school and stuff, but like I didn't think that, oh, my future's like I didn't used to write like, what are you going to be when you grow up? I usually didn't go like pro football player. So I don't think I'd be disappointed about that. I think I'd mostly just be like, that seems about right.
Yeah, big same. I was under no illusions about my like baseball or football future. And I will say, yeah, if you told me I got to talk a lot too, like podcasts, that would also not be so. I was known a bit as a talker. And I don't know what I put on those kind of like, what do you want to be when you grow up? But everyone, when I was growing up, told me to be a lawyer. And no offense, you probably have a lot of lawyers in your audience. I have to say, very glad I did not become a lawyer.
You were offended as a 6-year-old. Jeff Swartwood says, how do you guys think the rumored decrease in salary cap for 2021 could impact the free agency period this offseason? It seems like a lot of teams, for example, are looking to change their quarterback situation, and that could wind up being connected to a decreased salary cap.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have anything super original to say here, but I mean, I think it could definitely like turbocharge rebuilds, like say like with the New England Patriots, who they're not big free agency spenders, but they definitely are like distressed asset spenders, like bargain hunters. And I mean, every year you get lots of like 1-year bargains in free agency. But so many teams are going to have to be cutting veterans that they probably don't really want to be cutting or wouldn't otherwise be cutting. Even if the salary cap stays flat at $198 million. I think you're going to see like an unusual glut of like established veteran talent, like guys who can still really help your team. And like I'd say like a team, yeah, like the Patriots were the first team that came to mind for me, where just kind of you're coming off an extremely weird year, a lot of holes obviously, but a lot of their problems in defense were about opt-outs. And just I could see a team that's like good at identifying bargains like the Patriots, just like having a field day in like this glutted free agent market. And maybe those would be the two big effects to me where teams are going to have to cut, not just like teams like the Saints, like crazy salary cap situations. They have to be cutting players they don't really want to cut. And then it's like the Patriots are like the 4th or 5th most cap space, can maybe like really turbocharge a rebuild with cheap talent that really shouldn't be there in a normal year.
Yeah, and I don't think probably the quarterbacks are the ones who are going to suffer. No. Probably those guys are still going to make their $25 million a year. But it's going to be a lot of other positions, maybe a little less sexy. There will be lots. I mean, I just did a hit on a different show on Wednesday or Tuesday. I can't remember what day it was, but the host asked me what's going to be the biggest story of the offseason, and it was like pretty clearly it's going to be what quarterbacks land where. There's potentially for like 10 teams to have new quarterbacks next year, depending on what everybody decides to do. Those guys probably won't really see much of an impact from the salary cap change, if there is one. I mean, I'm not sure I either necessarily buy the premise of the question, because I've heard that the Players Association is even, they're willing to go so far, but probably not willing to decrease. Then they're going to spread out the losses from 2020 as being extraordinary over multiple years so that the owners don't have free range to just go, nope, sorry, revenues were 50%, yeah. Salary cap goes down 50%. Like, that it may be capped at keeping the cap the same as opposed to going down. I don't think anybody really knows yet. But even if it stays the same, what you're saying still holds true. Probably not for Matthew Stafford. Probably not for Jimmy Garoppolo or Carson Wentz or whatever. But for a lot of names that we know at different positions.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm glad we both made that point where even if it does stay the same, that will be a big problem. Because teams budget 10 to 12 million rise in every year.
Right. Absolutely. All right, Lance Larson. All right, I grouped all of the writing questions or the reading and fiction and stuff questions together because they're mostly from me, even though you're looking for a book idea and you know I'm sure to give you my scraps here soon. But Lance asked.
Funnel them to me.
Lance Larson says, how long as a reader should I really give a book before giving up and deciding I don't like it? Is it 50 pages? Is it 3 chapters? I try to balance not being a quitter versus being too old to do things I do not enjoy in my free time. I don't think there's a right answer, but like if you're reading, how long do you give a book before you decide, nah?
Yeah, I would say it's very good. Don't be a never quitter. Like someone like, well, there are some people like, well, I'm starting a book, I'm finishing it no matter what, and maybe that's not the norm, but yeah, don't be macho. There's no reason to be a never quitter. You should quit books, and 50 pages sounds and feels right, but I would say even if it's only been like 10 or 12 pages, say you just start a book, you read 10 pages, you come back the next day. If you don't want to pick it up and read it, I mean, you could be missing out on a great book, but life is just really too short to be reading things you don't want to be reading. And if it feels like work already, even if it's only been 10 or 15 pages, I would say there's no shame in abandoning the book. And I kind of like err on the side of never quitting. But like last year, I think I quit more books I probably quit like 4 or 5 books last year. And there's no shame in it. It is like the ultimate, life is too short. You can't be sitting here reading a book that you're not enjoying reading.
Yeah, I used to be a never quitter. I used to brag about it like through my probably teens and part of my 20s. And then at some point
Same.
I would say mostly I don't usually pick up books that I suspect I'm not going to like. And I usually err on the side of reading classics and or sort of canon approved and or like I'm usually not reading something because I really only read fiction. And so I'm really, I'm not picking up a novel that was written last year, usually, unless extreme circumstances, I guess. Sometimes maybe I will, but I haven't for a while. I mean, I just read a Virginia Woolf novel. Like if I don't like a Virginia Woolf novel, it seems like it's got to do with me more than it does, people have kind of all agreed it's pretty good. However, there are sometimes classics that sound like they're going to be good, and I'll read the very beginning and I'll be like, a lot of people like it, but I guess it's not for me, and I will stop. What's the right amount? I mean, if somebody read the first 50 pages of Infinite Jest, a 1,000-page novel or whatever, they might actually not like it because it doesn't make tons of sense. It doesn't cohere very well until you get in pretty far. But I think that's pretty rare. I think largely, especially like just if the writing is bad, I know if I'm not enjoying the actual writing pretty quickly, I have to say.
No, yeah, absolutely. And occasionally you'll miss out like an Infinite Jest, or maybe even like The Sound and the Fury from like William Faulkner, which never gets like normal, but
you just get used to it.
Yeah, it's like especially weird at the beginning. Right. But yeah, my philosophy is this: like, if you don't want to pick up the book, then just don't pick it up. It doesn't matter how many pages it's been.
All right, I can get through these two pretty quick because it's about my own writing. Stephen Downs says, any updates on your current novel? Michael Smith says, when is the next book coming? Tulsa was awesome. Wouldn't mind reading more. So I'll say to Michael, I have 3 other books, so you can go back in time. My first one, which came out 10 years ago now, is about the NFL, is about a running back trying to make it in the NFL. It's called Slotback Rhapsody. Many people like it. So I have books. You can listen to them too. They're all in audiobooks. I read them, so if you like my dulcet tones, you can hear me reading them. Those are all on Amazon. So the update on what I'm writing now is it's a big, giant, heaping mass of a thing. It's already quite a bit longer than Tulsa. It's going to be twice as long as it is now. I'm like over 100,000 words, Pat, and it's not close. Still, it's been a year. It's at least another year, probably more. It takes place in 2050, and it's about kind of what life is like then, and then also the possibility that a drug exists that allows people not to be afraid of dying. So it's kind of big. It's not really science fiction, but I guess it has elements of it. It's more, I don't know. I hope people wind up liking it, but you're not gonna see it for a long time. However, I am now more committed to giving updates about where I am writing and also what I'm reading. So anybody who's listening who's interested in any of this stuff, follow me on Goodreads because I've started this past few weeks writing blog stuff. I think I'm Christopher Harris on there. You should be able to find me. You'll recognize my picture. I'm in front of the Harris bookshelf. I would like it if more people followed me there. That would be good for eventually when it's done and a publisher's like, oh, he has 5 followers on Goodreads. I'm not going to publish his book. Let me ask you this, unless you had anything to add. I don't think you did. It's just my stupid writing. I didn't mean to. I'll just keep going. Yeah.
No, yeah, no, absolutely. I've enjoyed listening to it, though.
All right, thanks. Michael Forsch, who's my in real life friend, says, what NFL player would make you drive off the hypothetical road if he were to succeed in 2021?
I couldn't think of a good answer for this. In 2020, it was succeed. How do you define succeed? In 2020, for me, it was Josh Allen becoming an MVP type player, and then he did. And I drove off the road multiple times. And 2021, it might have to be Taysom Hill. But we don't even know if he's going to be the starter. But
right.
To me, the act was wearing thin before it even officially became the act, and he was the starter. Then it was, kind of defying expectations, kind of proving the hashtag haters wrong. But, it's like 2 games against the Atlanta Falcons, 1 game against the team starting a wide receiver at quarterback. And I am still very believe it when I see it with Taysom Hill. Sean Payton is an extremely smart man, knows so much more about football than me. But that one, I would be close to at least pulling over to the shoulder and collecting my thoughts if Taysom Hill was really good in 2021.
Yeah, success is the real question. Like, how do we define success? Maybe I'll say, because David Montgomery now is going to be a top 12 running back or something, right? He almost certainly is going to be a 2nd-round draft pick, and I think I'm going to be pretty surprised if he performs at that level. I don't think he's terrible. I just think he's okay. Kind of he's a Jordan Howard type, like a big dude who, if you give him a ton of work, eventually, sometimes it goes well. I guess I couldn't tell you that I'd be the most surprised of any player in the league. Like, I'd be really surprised if Ryan Fitzpatrick signs with the Patriots and winds up going to the Super Bowl. Like, that would be more surprising to me. But it just, one thing that popped in my head, because we talked about him so much at the end of December, is just the Montgomery run at the end. It just struck me as not likely to recur, not that repeatable, not really based in him being great, just sort of him being the last guy standing there.
With David Montgomery, I'll add some thoughts to that real quick. So much of it was about just an outrageously soft schedule at the end of the season. But, even that was a bar I didn't think he would clear. You have to be a good player to take advantage of, a soft schedule. And so he did clear. Sometimes we don't give players enough credit for that. Like, it's against a terrible defense. Well, yeah, not every player has a great game against a terrible defense. So he did at least clear that bar. But David Montgomery does still feel like an easy fade. And I'll say the industry, not just the industry, the players, the fantasy players out there, I feel like have gotten better and not overreacting to stuff like David Montgomery, like kind of like Tyler Higbee last year. His ADP was high, but it wasn't like out of control. And like the whole fantasy football populace has gotten better at identifying those kind of like outlier type finishes or outlier type stretches. But David Montgomery, I'm with you. I would be very surprised if that was like a harbinger of more amazing things to come. And instead, it was just kind of like the fluke that it kind of felt like in the moment.
One more break. We're sponsored by DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of Super Bowl 55. They are bringing back their golden ticket giveaway with up to $55 million in prizes up for grabs. All you have to do to get your share of the big prize is enter DraftKings' free Super Bowl predictions challenge. If you get the most predictions correct, you could win the top prize of $1 million. Stuff like who'll score last, prop type stuff. And someone will win $1 million. If you're already a DraftKings player, go do it. I know I will be. And if you're not, download the DraftKings app now and use the promo code Harris to enter the free $55 million Super Bowl prediction challenge. Everyone gets an instant prize of up to $25,000 just for playing. So use promo code Harris now and enter the free $55 million Super Bowl challenge only at DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of Super Bowl 55. Terms, conditions, and eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. All right, we're back with Pat, and we're going to do some more questions from the People of the Book group. Larry Wilson asked, do you feel any optimism for Odell Beckham next year?
Sort of. I mean, do you?
It depends on what. I was too high on him even before he got hurt. As it turned out, it just wasn't. It wasn't working even before he got hurt, and it's a little alarming to see it go so well with him hurt. Where Jarvis Landry gets healthy and suddenly feels like maybe Landry played better than Beckham would have had he stayed healthy, or at least better than he was playing. But do I think Odell Beckham's going to be draftable? Is he going to be a contributor for fantasy? Sure.
Yeah, it's just, for me, he needs a quarterback willing to take shots, like be aggressive down the field, where he's truly special too, like turning slants into yards after the catch. But I mean, he's a genuine downfield playmaker, and the Browns are doing all they can to take that out of Baker Mayfield's game and have him avoid those. Not that he had no deep passing to speak of last year, but they're trying, to make Baker Mayfield be a safe, conservative system type quarterback, really. And the injuries have just really piled up, of course, for Odell Beckham. And I wouldn't be shocked if we're kind of looking at a Dez Bryant type career arc, where someone who burned really brightly, but then maybe just got too diminished physically. I mean, he was such a freak athlete. I mean, such a special talent that I will always feel some degree of optimism for Odell Beckham. I would probably feel more if he got traded again and he got a third chance. But yeah, one of my favorite players of the past 10 or 15 years, but the optimism level has been waning.
Sure. I mean, what, you guys had a blurb on him, on his recovery that seemed to suggest there's talk that he won't even be ready for minicamp, and who knows if he'll be ready I assume he'll be ready for training camp, but I guess we don't really know. But let's just assume for the moment that the recovery goes fine, and we're told, we can't know for sure, but we're told he's roughly back to what he's supposed to be by the time we get to training camp. I don't know how I'm answering this question yet, but who gets rated higher, Landry or Beckham?
Beckham. I'll still just bet on the specter of unknown upside, I guess, over Landry. Yeah, he did the Jarvis Landry thing this year, but even by his standard, I mean, he was hurt all year. I mean, I feel like he was never totally right from the hip. I will still bet on just the specter of unknown upside with Odell Beckham over the high floor of Jarvis Landry, but probably still mostly just floor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not positive I feel that way. I have to think about it more. I don't it's interesting that for me, at least, it's not a no-brainer. So
it's true. Yeah.
Will Buck asked a question I can answer quickly that several people asked. Is a 2020 movie review with cousin Josh coming to the podcast? And the answer is it's not. So Pat, every year, cousin Josh, regular on the show, my actual cousin, comes and we do late January. We do our top 10 movies of the year for obvious reasons. This year just didn't have a lot of movies released, so it would be a very difficult show to do. And Josh and I talked and decided, unfortunately, we're going to have to skip it this year. I will say the best movie that I saw, obviously not in a theater, but the best new movie I saw. Do you see First Cow, Pat?
I'm an extensive list keeper. It is on where I keep my movie lists of movies I'm going to watch, and I have not watched it yet.
So that's one that I mean, it's small. It's Kelly Reichardt, and she did Meek's Cutoff, which I think Meek's Cutoff is genius, an absolute one of the best movies of the last decade. And this is less ambitious. It's a smaller scope. It's also kind of pioneer times. I really liked it. If you're in the mood for something gentle but good, First Cow. That probably would have been high on my list. Braxton Ray asks, which of the current NFL rookies, that meaning from last year, obviously, from the 2020 season, do you think has the greatest chance at finishing top 5 or top 10 at their position in 2021?
Yeah, I wasn't sure how to approach this one. Are we talking the really obvious suspects like Justin Jefferson? I mean, I guess even Justin Jefferson, you can't take it for granted, that he'll finish in the top 10. So Justin Jefferson, Jonathan Taylor probably have very good chances. More like dark horse. It's the end of the season. I can't speak anymore. Dark horse-ish would mean is Brandon Ayuk a crazy answer?
No.
Does someone? Yeah. Anytime Kyle Shanahan target someone who has a very specific vision of offense and has a history of like at every position, producing like monster fantasy seasons. You know, he targeted someone like Brandon Ayuk. Like things didn't go super according to plan for Brandon Ayuk. He was hurt several times, lots of quarterback chaos, and he still just hit the ground running immediately. Maybe he was being used differently too than he would have been in their perfect scenario. Like he seemed like he was drafted to be like another kind of yak slasher basically, but he got a lot of opportunities as like a traditional wide receiver and commanded that huge volume, had big games with it. And yeah, a first round pick who was targeted by Kyle Shanahan and immediately had a big rookie year and not perfect circumstances. And yeah, I just want to say Chase Claypool too. Kind of weird usage, obviously, as the year went on. But Juju Smith-Schuster basically as good as gone, and to someone of that size and that fluidity at that size, I mean, we have a lot of questions about the Steelers' passing offense, and Ben Roethlisberger's future. But just based on like usage and initial success, I want to say maybe Brandon Ayuk. But just based on like the raw physical skill we saw, not to mention the great stats, of course, my answer might be Chase Claypool.
Sure. I did a Ayuk film futures on last week's podcast, so if people haven't listened to last week, go listen to my review of Ayuk's film. Often when I come out of those film futures, Pat, I'm like, I'm not sure it's worth the hype. That's one where I got more hyped. From not worrying about the stats, not worrying about anything, just watching him play, I got hyped. I think Ayuk is legit. So I'm with you there. We certainly could say Justin Herbert. That'd be pretty easy to justify that maybe Herbert could be that part of that. Really, any of the running backs, I think we wouldn't be shocked if DeAndre Swift. We wouldn't be shocked. You said Taylor, Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins. I think they all have a chance. They're all going to be – they have downside because maybe they don't get full-time jobs. But, I mean, the one who I don't think is going to be is now Edwards-Helaire.
No.
It feels like I've seen all that Edwards-Helaire is going to be, and I maybe didn't fall in love. So yeah, I mean, it was a good skill year. So there's a bunch of guys who could. All right, some non-football questions. Paul Smith, what is the latest band you guys have gotten into, music-wise?
So I tend to be an all-in listener. Like I get into an artist and then go all in. Like get obsessed with the entire catalog. Do like saturation listening for like over a year. And the last person I've probably done that with was not the Cleveland Browns offensive line coach, but indie folk singer Bill Callahan has been like my most stable obsession over the past year. An enormous catalog. He recorded under the name Smog for a long time, which I've listened to none of that actually. He has a vast, sprawling catalog, but I got super into Bill Callahan's 2011 album Apocalypse, and I've just been super into him ever since. Been kind of working my way backwards, and a very deep baritoned indie folk singer who is very funny, great melodies though. And Bill Callahan has been my obsession. Quickly too, like I got really into like an artist who I haven't done the catalog deep dive yet. I got into Kevin Morby, is from Kansas City, and he made a Midwestern themed album, which I'm like hook, line, and sinker sucker for. Kevin Morby's Sundowner was very good last year, and Gum Country, I'm very into indie rock. I'm in my indie rock lane, so all these will be very traditional indie rock type recommendations. But the debut album from Gum Country from a woman named Courtney Garvin, who was in some other indie bands for a while, was just an amazing kind of like throwback 90s indie gold sounds album. So that's my too expansive answer again.
That's fine. I think Bill Callahan, Maryland's own. Do you talk to Denny Carter about him all the time? Rotoworld.
Is he from? I think he's from Texas, actually. I'm not sure. He's one of those guys who's like from everywhere.
Okay.
He's one of those. He's like had a history.
I'm looking.
Like
yeah,
he's
born
like
born in Maryland. I'm not sure where he came up from, but born in Maryland. So whatever.
Okay. That makes sense. He's like one of those guys. He probably has like a history in like all 50 states somehow. He probably lived in St. Charles, Missouri, my suburb, for 5 years somehow.
Without you
during
some,
yeah.
I'll add. I'm excited because of just a few days from when we're recording this. A band called Black Pistol Fire. Do you know them?
I do not.
They're from Austin, and they have a new record coming out just in a couple of days. And I liked their previous one, and it's Black Keys adjacent, I would say, and Black Keys are pretty good. So I sort of like that two-man band, loud R&B influenced rock. That's pretty good. Yeah. I mean, I've played, you can, if people want to know what I've been playing, honestly, I did more music digressions on the podcast this year. So go to the website, go to harrisfootball.com. I put a link to everything I played, and most of those are represented there. So you can get a great sense. What do I have? Michael Riley, another real life friend of mine who no longer lives in LA, asks the question, if you were to get a dog, what kind of dog would you get? Do you guys have a dog? I don't even know.
We do not. When you get a dog, if you feel like you usually get the dogs you know. And I grew up with Australian Shepherds. My dad is very into Australian Shepherds. And I can't say that I would get another Australian Shepherd. Very, very high energy, like sheepdog type dogs. And they shed a lot too. First, I don't think the dog is not really. We're kind of in the situation where, like, if one of our 3 children at some point forces us to get a dog, or like tries to force us to get a dog, maybe we'll consider it. But my wife and I's opinion is we've got our hands full here right now, and not really looking to add a dog to the equation.
Yeah, I'm not looking to add a dog either. I'm theoretically I'm bi-coastal, even though I've been trapped on the West Coast for a year and a half. I had beagles for 20 years. I mean, that's what I had. So, and then I kind of want those dogs back if I could have them, but they're gone, so I can't. If somebody could find a way to give me those dogs, I would definitely take them again, though. So lastly, I don't know why I'm ending with this because it's not football related, but whatever. It's two questions about, I guess, my vegetarianism. You're not a vegetarian, but Alex Kanata asks, do you think that most people will be vegetarian or vegan in your lifetime? And Evan WB says, today's my 2-year vegetarian anniversary. What food do you miss the most? I can do the latter. It's been so long. I mean, I've been a vegetarian for 20 years, dude. I don't have cravings anymore for meat. I don't think about it. I guess, I don't know. I don't. What would you miss the most if you were vegetarian?
I would miss chicken. Chicken's what I would miss. I'm basically have kicked red meat. Not really like intentionally. It wasn't like a conscious decision. But yeah, I would miss. It would be very hard for me to do without the chicken.
There's lots of imitation chicken things that I cook that are just, I mean, I'm so dumb now because I wouldn't know what real chicken tasted like, but I think you'd probably do okay if you had to.
Oh, the chicken have gotten much better over the past 20 years, Chris. So you're really missing
all those anabolics they give them.
Say they're just raised much more responsibly now too.
Right.
You know, nothing at all concerning about the way we raise chickens.
No, not at all.
I'll say as a non-vegetarian, I definitely think vegetarianism will continue to grow. And like my feelings on like nutrition in America was that like our parents' generations were just like totally misled. Like they were the first generation that had like readily available, like, you know, food you could keep in the freezer and then warm up. Like they were like, unfortunately, like the vanguard, like the processed foods, like vanguard. And they were just like misled on food their whole life and like miseducated. And now like education about like actual like natural nutrition is coming back, and we will continue to be more and more informed. And it's going to be a tall order in America, but I think that America will just continue to gradually become a healthier country.
Yeah, will most people be vegetarian or vegan in my lifetime? No. Are you kidding me? No. That is, the answer is no.
This is America.
Yeah, this is not the land of tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. No, sir. That will not happen, even though it would be lovely if it did, because I like animals' faces that I would prefer them not to be slaughtered. I wanted to end it on a football question, but I don't have one. I think we sorted through all these questions. So let me ask you a question that's personally I'm curious about. Saquon Barkley coming back from a torn ACL. We did our like way too early top 12 for 2021. You know, whatever, mid-December, early December, something like that. And I put Barkley at like 12 or 11 or something like that, being quite concerned about a running back coming back off a torn ACL. And cousin Josh put him at 3. Would you be more apt to take the chance? I mean, there's so much time to decide, but I just wonder where your head's at with Barkley.
To me, the main concern probably isn't the knee. It's a concern, of course, but he's, you know, probably that Adrian Peterson type physical talent where I think he will pretty quickly be able to at least make the physical come back. You know, who knows about the mental aspect, but I'm more worried about just the running back who has that variable, the health variable. then in an offense, I don't like when they're coming back off like these lost seasons and like an offense that's like still not going to have an identity. Like they still have no idea if Daniel Jones is their future. Their receiver core is all screwed up. The offensive line is still not a settled unit. Like the coach is, I guess the coach won't be on the hot seat next year. The GM's on the hot seat. Just like coming back in these chaotic, unsettled, like a team just without an identity still. That is like kind of what worries me about Saquon Barkley. Of course I can't sit here and say it's not a concern. Of course it's a concern. He has a torn ACL, but I do think he has that level of physical talent where even if he was like slightly diminished, which I don't think he will be, I'm basically, this is my long way of saying I'm betting on an Adrian Peterson type physical recovery from Saquon Barkley.
Is he more likely to be 3 or more likely to be 12 in your overall?
I would say more likely to be 3 because the Giants are still going to be, we are going to force the issue of Saquon Barkley. Like they want to prove, this was the right decision. And I think 3 is more likely than 12.
All right. You're maybe talking me into it. I have a lot. I guess I have a lot of time to search my soul and maybe come around because obviously people who listen to this show know no bigger Saquon fan. Saquon listens to this show, I think. I mean, at least his PR people do because they keep tweeting stuff from it. So, hey Saquon, how are you? Be well, buddy. All right, well, this was very fun. I hope you had fun, Pat. Please follow Patrick Daugherty on Twitter at RotoPat. Be on the lookout at Rotoworld for his piece that's going to be coming out right after the Super Bowl. That's going to be a season in review where he does a paragraph about every team and kind of where they stand and what happened to get them there. An annual tradition that you now have been indoctrinated into. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. And truly my pleasure. And yeah, maybe it's self-indulgent for me, but I love to answer the non-football questions too. So I loved that I got the opportunity to do that. And typically, not surprising, very fun, very sharp questions from the Harris football universe.
And I agree with that. Thank you so much for listening and also for submitting your questions. Let me also thank today's sponsors. We had Indochino and Bespoke Post and DraftKings. So if you're interested in supporting the show, pick a sponsor. You can find a full list of all of our promo codes and URLs and stuff at harrisfootball.com. Of course, when you are able to, that's completely fine. If you're not able to right now, my heavens, we all understand why that would be. But if you are able to, that's the way to show support for the show because that's how they keep coming back and sponsoring, and that's why there is a podcast because of our great sponsors, and really, actually, because of you, because you do such a wonderful job supporting the sponsors. All right, well, so we have a week off here from the NFL playoffs. And lots of time to speculate about what might happen in the Chiefs-Buccaneers tilt. And to join that speculation, this time next week, that would be, Wednesday night-ish. Usually it seems like that's how it's working out with the guests. We'll probably put it out next Wednesday. That's in February. Holy cow, a whole month of this year is gone already. My two guests are going to be, once again, I'll have Chris Raybon back on the show. Chris was on at the beginning of the playoffs to talk about the handicapping look at the whole playoffs, and now that the very public team, the Buccaneers, has arrived in the Super Bowl, we'll ask Chris more about how he thinks this has gone and what prop bets he likes, that sort of stuff. And then, of course, Jim McCormick will join as well, and we will make our picks both against the point spread and probably the total, and then lots of prop bets as well. It will be our Super Bowl preview, and it will be fun. And until then, I hope you have a wonderful week. Your hat continues to be awesome. I will talk to you next week.
The Harris Football Podcast's opening theme is Under the Gun by Apex Manor. The closing theme is Say Yes by The Wellspring. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and never miss an episode.